still taking a video? Man, this current stuff. I know, dude.
Which way is it taking you?
That way. Jump in. I'm not gonna. Okay. Okay, what? Hurry up or we're gonna float away. I just stepped through his canoe. Gotta get the element.
So I guess everybody knows why we're here, eh? What we're gonna do, I'm gonna talk a little bit about some of the history of this lake in this area. But today particularly about this lake because I guess all of us here really have had relatives who used this lake. And what we want to do is rename some of the places and some of the mountains, some of the lakes that we see, this lake in particular, and talk about some of the history. And I'll do that as we go down the lake. I've got a few places we should try to stick together, because I got a few places I want to stop on the way down, because if coming back, the wind might be coming up, eh? We'll be bouncing around while we're sitting down. The lake is nice now, so maybe we'll do that on the way down. I'm going to stop on the way back also at the mouth of the river where it leaves the lake. There's a portage on the right hand side that goes down through those rapids. We might be able to find some eagle feathers, and we'll name that rapids. I don't see a name for it at all. In the fall there's literally hundreds of eagles there. And then the spring again, because fish are spawning there, the bottom of the rapids. So we'll do that. Before we go, there's this mountain we're going to name right here. This mountain now, have a good look at it and what kind of features So you see there. How would you want to think about what we said when we were coming down the river in regards to how our people name things? Have a look at that mountain. What color is it? Rusty brown. So they would probably use a Nishnaabemowin name to describe that as a rusty mountain or a brown mountain. So they'd know where that is now. That's how they would name those things. And we'll mark that on the map. I've got it marked on the map actually. And when we do our exercise there on the 28th, we'll include that and get JP to translate some of the things. Anyways, we'll go down the road and a little ways and Grant will lead, and then I'll stop at the next stop there. And what I want to show you is a picture of Eli Miigtikong in a canoe. You have probably seen that photo. And again, almost everybody here, probably except JP, Kelly, and Francis, is related to that guy, ancestor to that guy, and Katie, of course. But everybody else is. So I'm going to show you a photo, and I'm going to show you exactly where it was taken.
That was the last name of Jackfish.
But when you look at the people who use this thing, the Mishanos, Eli Miigtikong, Louis Mishano, George Mishano, Butch, Peter Mishano, Matt Mishano, Bartel Mishano, Louis Child, Moses Starr, all those guys used this lake. There's evidence of all those guys using this lake. Moses Fisher was here too at the camp in Jackfish because he was married into the Mishano family. Anyway, we'll go over in the next stop. They had names for all those things, eh? That rusty mountain back there is such an outstanding feature that they would have had a name for it. Same as this thing. Look at what's the shape? Eh?
Beaver Lodge.
Beaver Lodge? Could be. There's something we're going to look at in our lake that Eli named in regards to Len Bergeau's beaver house. But the round feature, which makes sense because the old man told me that lodge was in there, eh?
Right by the beach.
So it was easy landing with the canoes, eh?
Yeah. Don't wreck the birch bark.
And again, a lot of our people worked here. It wasn't just Eli Miigtikong. I just happened to have a picture of him. But there was Moses, like I said, Moses Starr, Louis the Child, all the Mishanos, George, Louis, Bartel, Peter, Matthews. So there's a lot of history with our people here. Next stop, we'll stop on the left-hand side there again. There's an old portage going up the hill, and I'll talk a bit about some of the stuff there.
Sauce my lunch before you eat it on me.
Okay, I already did.
By the sea.
See that sign in there? That's the sign into Diablo Lake. That's the portage going into Diablo Lake. That's the infamous portage that canoeists always talk about. They want to try that out because it's so tough. It's almost straight up. And then when you go across the top, there's potholes there. There's people that got hurt there. That's where they go when they do that, the popular Steel River route. They go up here, up into Cairngorm, Devil Lake, Cairngorm, Esker Lake, Steel Lake, and then back down the Steel River and into here. Again, where the name Diablo came from, I don't know, but the old man says they used to call that Devil Lake, Criminal. I don't know why, maybe because of that portage, but I suspect that portage was put in there by recreational users or tourism users. I don't think Nishnaabemowin will do that. There's 3 lakes, 1, 2, 3, that I suspect the Nishnaabemowin would have used with her, which are a lot easier to a little longer, but not as dangerous. Again, we want to look at the name of this lake that's just over the hill here and the name of this portage. And you see now why the Nishnaabemowin would have called this mountain lake. Okay?
Yeah.
Mountains all around it. Where did the name Santoy come from again? I don't know. Dragon Ashrook, yeah, but who did they name it after? They're always naming their lakes after people.
There you can see your tree lake.
Yep. Yeah, that's the one. Yep.
You can see where that ravine they must have followed it.
Yep. But you see those 3 lakes, and I suspect that's the 3 lakes when you're reading Louis Giles' stuff, and he's talking about camping at the north end of Santoy Lake, and he's talking about I went to those 3 lakes, and I was looking on the steel itself, because it seemed like he went up the steel, then he went into those 3 lakes, but I'm suspecting what he's talking about is those 3 lakes there. But anyways, we'll go to the beach. I'm not sure where the lander Grant might know.
Yeah, I was talking to Dave and he says it's pretty shallow in that mountain.
Yep.
I don't know if we can get out there or not.
We might be able to do something on the far end, I don't know. Or one of those other beaches.
help you in the front. You have to take your shoes off. Here on the off. Shoes are off already.
Where are we? Where are we? Did you have any special reason why you stopped?
We're going to have lunch and we're going to talk a bit.
Oh.
We're at the north end of Big Santoy Lake.
Say that again, Tony?
North end of Big Santoy.
And how about this, Elder? What are your thoughts?
My thoughts? My thoughts are that people used to be standing around here.
Did you have anything you wanted to share on our lunch break stop here?
I got in my lunch.
How? You happy you got out of that little rut there?
Oh yeah.
Ah, miigwech.
I was just telling Dawson, if somebody was all alone, he'd have a hell of a time to get out of there, especially with the wind. Anyways, not lucky.
Blow it up, man.
What if the trees still around here?
They can see this for a long time, eh?
Yeah. You see this?
Next you know where that old cabin was.
Yeah.
This photo was taken right in the north end of this lake. And I got this photo, I got it from a guy I used to work with. The back of it said 1920s Eli Mishano cabin, north end Santoy. I asked my dad if that was his dad. He says, no, my dad wasn't that dark. I asked Uncle Eli also, and Uncle Eli identified that guy as Abraham Demley. David Demley and them his grandfather. So that's who that is. Who that is, I don't know. I'm presuming that my grandfather was the one taking the photograph. That guy there is the son of the hotel owner in Jackfish. That's probably who they sold their first to. That's usually how it went. They had an intermediary. But anyways, that's my grandfather and Randy's grandfather and Grant's grandfather and Tony's grandfather's cabin right over here in the north end of this lake somewhere from the 1920s. So I would like at some point to go in there and look around to see if you can find remains, because you can see where these things are. Because what happens as they collapse, they leave a little mound, eh? And I'm going to show you that tomorrow when we're in Jackfish at the south end of Jackfish Lake, where they used to have their cabins. You can still see the outline. They aren't very big, not as big as this one, but this one probably housed, you know, a couple of families. That's why it was so big. And you see, Abraham Demley probably had his family. Eli Jackfish / Mishano probably had his family, and I don't know who that is. I have no idea who that is. But anyways, that's here, right here. That's our connection to this lake. Somewhere in the north end of this lake. I don't know where, but I would like to look around sometime. I tried to ask my dad if he knew exactly where that was, but he didn't even know exactly where it was. But he used to tell us that his grandfather, who was his step-grandfather, Louis Mishano, George Mishano's dad, used to like stopping over at Larry Lake because there was a lot of muskrat in there. And Grant, when he was just talking to us over there basically said that old man used to like stopping there also to pick up whitefish. That's where they stop and get whitefish over at Larry Lake. That's another lake that we got to rename. Uncle Toussaint also told me that they used to log here long ago in the 1940s. Just after we got back from the war. And I was in the north end of Larry Lake one time walking in, and I saw an old tractor wheel laying in the ground. So, what Uncle Toussaint was telling me, that corroborated that old tractor wheel sitting there in the swamp, and it's right in the north end of, see if I can find it here, right in the north end of Larry Lake. There. There's one of those tractor wheels right in there somewhere. And Uncle Toussaint said they used to log all over in here, and they used to fish lake trout in those lakes. So, see if I can find that lake there. Look, those lakes along the side here, eh? Look, there's lake trout in there. But also when you talk about the Mishanos and you talk about Bartel, Peter, and Matthews. Matthews told me his brother used to like trapping these lakes right in here. That's right straight across here. And they'd walk in there on the ice, and all they would carry was a rabbit skin blanket, beaver snares, and T-bill, and their axe, because they wanted to keep their load light so that they can leave the wind their axe after the beaver snares. So our people again had a lot of history here and used this place. I remember, where's Grant? Old Hermes had a cabin on Larry Lake.
Yeah.
And
Still got it there.
Yeah, he still probably got it there. And that was part of my dad's trap line. And he was bugging my dad over and over. Used to come and visit him to try and get my dad to transfer that portion of that trap line over to him. We finally contacted the M&R and told the M&R, don't tell that guy to leave my dad alone, because he shouldn't be pestering him like that. So that cabin is still there. What else? Anything you could think of, Grant?
Other than, I don't know, I know Ernie Bluntz and Tim Neal used to trap. They used to go up Spider, and then they used to come through the Santoy, all those little lakes on the west side. They had the old trail there, you know where Jackfish showing was?
Yeah.
They had their old trails there going up in there. And the old man used to talk about Tim Neal and Ernie Bluntz.
So lots of use by our And the old man talks about also somewhere just after you leave the outlet of Steel River from the lake, that Bartel and Pedro found some copper one time. I always wanted to go back and have a look at that, but never got around to it. So, any questions? What do they call this lake?
Santoy.
The Nishnaabemowin call it. Mountain lake. And I used to ask them, they had a big family, a great big family. How did you get everybody in the bush? We had a big canoe, a 20-foot canoe. I said, how the hell you carry that thing? I said, well, you guys would carry it. Yeah. Big friggin' canoe. But you know, they gotta fit kids in there, they gotta fit the gear for the winter and traps. And they said they used to take saltfish also, so they'd have a barrel of saltfish. That would last until Christmas.
trade.
Yeah. So anyway, a lot of history here for our people. One of the guys are going to write a history book about it.
Oh.
Read all Louis Vuitton stuff and write a history book. Ah, anyway.
Come closer, everybody. Come on, Reed.
Right here. This place originally was where our people had their camps. And you see why. Easy to dock with their canoe. They had to move out of here sometimes during the early 30s when they were building that old highway. Just the other side of the highway you'll see an old road. There's an old make-work project that the Canadian government put in place during the 1930s. And they were blasting in there. And stones and rocks were flying into the camp here, so they have to move from here to over there. Whether you can see, you probably can't see any old remnants of any cabins they had here. However, that one there, I was talking to a guy in Terrace Bay, and they got no idea who built that. So, something to think about. The people in Terrace Bay don't know who originally built that cabin there. But our people were here, they had to move across the lake because of the construction of that old highway that was going on in the early 30s. The place that excellent place here. The place that they had to move to is not very good. It's not a good landing. But when you go in the bush, you can see some of the old structures they had there. They're not very big, but it's there. And I remember standing there with my dad and looking out at this lake, and I was telling him, I said, oh, it must be nice here for having moose, eh? And but this is a good lake. And he thought for a while, he says, no, because we used to have caribou. And then I remember him, because this was before the war, eh? My dad never stayed here after the war, basically angler and the river. But then I remember him telling me a story about him and his brother Stanley, the oldest one, and the oldest boy, somewhere back here, shooting 5 caribou as they were running across the ice. Eh? So I remember him telling us that story. So basically, they weren't hunting moose at that time prior to the war. They were going after caribou. Eh? And when you listen to Colette stories and the guys that were mom and dad, that's what they hunted. By the 1950s, I used to hear very, very few comments about people actually killing caribou, but there was some. But by the 1960s, you never hear anything. They were hunting moose. There was moose everywhere. I remember seeing 5 or 6 moose one night in Melgan Lake when we were teenagers. But anyways, that was their site. They had to move across the lake over there. That was an original. That was a natural exit into Lake Superior. Eh? You'll see a culvert there, but that culvert is only there because of the CPR tracks. Eh? That was just like mud bay. This was just a bay on Lake Superior. It's not a lake. Eh? So
Part of Lake Superior.
yeah. Until CPR blocked it all off. And again, we might want to. I think we have to think about what we're going to name this. Jackfish basically is not our English name for pike. So do we want to change that name? But anyways, we'll go across there and we won't look, and I'll tell you a few more comments. Basically, my dad's dad died sometimes in the mid 1930s, 1935, 1936, something like that. My dad was 14 years old, he told me. And they were somewhere north of here. My dad, his dad, and his grandfather, Louis Michon. Step-grandfather Louis. He didn't say whether it was any, there's a whole bunch of lakes here, up towards 50. If they were there or they were up in Owl Lake. It was, maybe that's why he got such an attachment to Owl Lake. But his dad took sick, and they had to, his old grandfather and him, when he was 14 years old basically, had to haul him home in the canoe, in the toboggan, because he's too sick to walk. So you imagine, put yourself in your shoes, 14 years old, bringing your dad home in the toboggan because he's sick. Can't walk anymore. So those kinds of things. And my dad says they used to walk to Owl Lake from here in the winter, him and his grandfather. He used to live really like that. And him and his grandfather would walk to Owl Lake 20 minutes. And when you look on a map at how far Owl Lake is, they were booting it. So he was 20 minutes walk. I suspect they went over the hill from where the old camps were. I don't think they went up these gullies. It wasn't too far.
It means it would take us 2 hours to get there.
If we get there.
If we were to hike up.
Yeah. But there was developed trails, eh? Because the guys from Longlac, before the CN line went in, used to have a trail from here that they pick up supplies here and go through Owl Lake, the Catalanites Lake, the Long Lake, in the winter hauling supplies. And one of our old ancestors, Emil Finlayson, has documented that. I have it at home somewhere. So he basically describes how they'd haul stuff in the winter time. They couldn't go up the river. They'd use that trail. So there was a developed trail that basically my dad and the old Louis were using. So went through Owl Lake. My dad told me another story, and I think I told you about that. It's about Reno. Because if Reno would have been young then, Eli had been just a kid. Kathleen would have been just a kid. But their old man died around mid-1930s sometimes, but they basically stayed here until the late 30s, I guess, and then all moved to Thick River because they took that old man, and the boys started moving away because of the war. So Granny was left with Kathleen, Eli, and Reno to look after because all the other guys were gone, basically. My dad told me a story about, did you ever see that rifle that Arnold's got, that big long barrel 30-30? With the octagon barrel? You must have saw it in our house there. Oh, the barrel is so wore out that you can almost shove the bullet down and use it some of the times. But what happened there in the story behind that rifle is that I guess Uncle Reno, when he was in early teens or probably only around 10 years old, then in the late 30s, got on the bad side of an old German trapper that lived around here somewhere. I don't know why, but the old German trapper threatened to shoot him for whatever he did. So Uncle Stan, who was the oldest boy, went over to that German trapper's camp, walked right in the door, went to the wall, took that rifle off the wall and walked out and told that old German trapper, said, "Don't you ever threaten my brother again or I'll shoot you with your own rifle." And he kept that rifle, and that's the one Arnold's got. So we young people got a history of not being pushed around.
Well, I can remember my Shomi saying that when we'd ride by on the highway, we'd talk about this lake, and he said when his dad died, his mom used to do the laundry for the construction workers. So in the winter time, he would have to take the dog sled with the laundry back and forth across the lake to get a little bit of money for food.
And then another story my dad told me is that he had routes going up here to Fishnet Lake, and that's why personally I think they didn't have a portage going over the hill to Little Santoy and Big Santoy. I think they went through this chain of lakes here. He says when they used to come out with their canoes onto the north end of the lake, they'd start firing the rifle so that people over here would know to start putting a grub on with the food on, so by the time they paddled across the lake, the meal would be ready. So that was their signal to let them know they're on the lake. But again, Jackfish Lake, Owl Lake, Cairngorm Lake, Steel Lake, all those routes over there, these lakes back here, Little Santoy, Big Santoy, the Steel River, all our ancestors using those things. All the Mishanos, Moses Fisher, because he was married into the Mishanos. I remember my dad talking about going fishing with Alwish on Little Steel. That's the one right alongside the railroad track over there. Fishing pike, just using string and safety pins. They put a piece of salt pork on the safety pin. I asked him, "How do you get there?" "Well, we walk the railroad track down over there." So there were young men pissing around, eh? No gears, so what they use safety pins and string to fish pike, and pike will bite into. So those are the kinds of things that he's told me over and over the years. He'd be sitting there and then all of a sudden he'd start talking. Some of the stories you heard over and over, sometimes it'd be new. Every once in a while, Grant and Willie and Iona will come up with a new story that I didn't hear. So there's others. But anyways, we'll go across there and I'll show you where he showed me where those old camps are. They're not very substantial, but one of the things you got to consider when you're building a cabin, those things were all heated by wood. And the bigger the goddamn cabin, the more wood you got to cut to heat it. And when the men were all gone in the bush, and women got to cut that wood. So the smaller where they were, the easier it worked to heat. Keep it warm. You'll see that a lot of times with trappers' cabins. They're always small, not logging cabins. The loggers had all kinds of guys working to cut wood in. But the trapping cabin is pretty small. That one we saw there yesterday, that was a big cabin. And I am suspecting there was probably 2 or 3 families in that same cabin, because they did that too. Set a whole bunch of cabins all over the place. Then you're only heating up one cabin, you're only cutting wood for one cabin. And then we'll go across over there. He's looking for a spot to land rock.
Sure. That's all right. Are you
Okay, now if my shoes could get out.
Just show my hand there.
It kind of throws me off now that they have the
Same.
In Nishnaabemowin, who were living there, they have to, because of safety reasons, they have to move from over there to a place like this. It kind of gets me mad when I think about that. And they're doing the construction and the blasting. There's probably no thought put into it whatsoever about the safety of people who are living right there. What we're going to do is we're going to look down around on those black spruce areas, the lower areas, and again, one of the reasons they would have chosen something like this too is building material, black spruce logs. They couldn't haul those things any distance, eh? They had to build where the logs were. And that's why you see Mushkegowuk all the time, and they're building their camps in the bloody swamp. That's where their name comes from, Mushkegowuk. It's because that's where the building material is up north. All those black spruce logs. Anyways, we'll look around, we'll find them. I don't know exactly where they are, but they're in here somewhere.
Scare tree.
Here, you guys sing on some. Are we going over there?
I wander far away from the lake, eh? And if you get turned around.
He never says how far. You just walk there, you start walking, you go and you turn around.
Yeah, they dig holes and they put logs over to keep their food in there.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful.
Or 6 of them houses. There's a big family. See right there? See? And there's a corner right here.
Oh, yeah.
And then the logs go this way. Eh?
Where were you standing?
Right where we're standing. And then another corner right here. And then going this way. You can't tell where it is here because the trees have grown. But probably right here. That's where your Mishomis used to be living. Yeah, our family anyway. Family members.
Small, eh?
Well, remember what I said about having to keep it warm? When the guys are all gone, it's the women and the kids got to do that, eh?
Yeah.
So you don't want a great big mansion where you got to huddle around the stove.
But they had a hard time putting that needle in there because he had so much good in muscle. Sure. He was already old by then.
No, Aiden, come on.
Uh-huh. We're going to end up blowing it. Hey, Daily Rose. It's all up to you. Where am I sitting? Come on, there. It must have been. You're awesome, Kelly. Here's your weapon. Arr.
bags here. Run them over.
This place for our people. Before it was logged up, it's not logged up now. See how close they are. Well, if people would have had a name for that, man. Flake Island. And they wouldn't have been Flake Island. They would have had
So, can you do your loon call for us?